Welcome back to Quantum Conversations. My name is Sarah, and today my co-host Carrie Bennett and I are going to be making these complex topics of quantum biology and circadian biology understandable to the everyday person. Thank you so much for tuning in. We ask that if you are listening on audio only, that you take a moment to leave us up to a 5-star review. And if you're on YouTube, leave us a like, leave us a comment. It will help to get the show out to more people. And before we jump into today's topic, just a quick reminder to head down to the show notes and check out my free resources as well as Carrie's free resources. We also do have courses on a variety of topics. If you are hoping to dive deeper, Carrie and I both have practitioner courses available as well for anyone who wants to begin to bring these topics to their clients and help them to implement these strategies into their daily lives. So check those out. We also have a co-taught course called Quantum Fertility that is available that allows people and practitioners to work on their fertility using these principles of quantum biology and circadian biology. Again, thank you so much for listening or watching today's show, whichever one you are doing. And let's go ahead and jump into it now. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Quantum Conversations. We thought we would kind of continue a little conversation I started over on my YouTube channel, make it more conversational about just being a purist when it comes to holistic health, when it comes to, living this idealistic, all natural, crunchy lifestyle.
Yeah, totally. And can you give the backstory, I think, with your son? I think that'd be really helpful.
Yeah. And so on my YouTube channel this week, I did a little 20-minute video because I've been talking a little bit here and there about my son having eczema and that it being a struggle. And in that video, I really just talked about how I was floored by the whole thing because I did no shots for me, no shots for him. I had a natural birth. It wasn't a C-section. I took no antibiotics. And so those are the classic things that you see and you hear about when you see a child that gets head to toe eczema. People are like, oh, it was, shots. It was C-section. Mom took antibiotics, like something obvious, right?
High toxin exposure of some sort, obvious toxin.
Exactly. Mold in the house, which we checked for extensively. We did everything, checked everything. The only thing I can really come up with is some sort of a nervous system dysregulation with everything connected to my daughter because she had started having grand mal seizures at the same time. And it's like me as an adult, my nervous system is just like, okay, this is really hard. But as a baby, I can't imagine. And they always are, they're so connected. And so, it got so bad that he essentially fell off the growth chart. And Carrie was there.
And you and Matt are tall, right? You're tall individuals.
Yeah. He's 6'4". I'm 5'7". When James was born in the first 3 months of his life, he was like 90th percentile and above for height and weight. He was like a chunky, big baby. And then he wasn't growing. And the pediatrician, we see a pediatrician, which, by the way, I didn't say this on my episode. She, in hindsight, when we got through this, said, I'm really glad you didn't give him the shots because I see kids like this in my practice that we give them the shots and then they get asthma, they get ADHD, autism. This is why she's a standard pediatrician, but she sees what's happening to the children. And so she will allow parents like me, and this is unheard of. She's like the only one that I know of in the city, and you can't get in with her anymore. I got really lucky to get in with her. But yeah, she acknowledges that this happens. So yeah, we took him to see her at 3 months and she's like, you need antibiotics because this eczema is so bad that it has spread to be basically like a skin infection and it's just completely out of control. And I was like trying to do everything natural. Like I started with a trained classic homeopath immediately. And we did a whole workup. We were doing acutes. I was spending like 150 here, 150 there. Like, let's do acutes. I'm texting her. I'm calling her. We're trying like all these remedies. And I called her. I'm like, look, she wants us to do antibiotics. And the homeopath was like, no, we're going to keep doing more remedies. We're going to figure this out. We're going to figure this out. And we just weren't. And he wasn't sleeping. He wasn't growing.
We're talking months. I mean, we're talking like, this isn't just a couple of days, right? Of this. Yeah.
And I think when people think about eczema, they think about maybe like some little skin patches.
Not in this case.
This was a literal head to toe.
I mean, you sent me some pictures and I was like in pain just looking at those pictures.
Oh, it was so sad. I mean, it was so sad. And we bought these like hats and wraps. We had his hands wrapped, his whole body wet wrapped. And I was just like, the holistic health people tell me I can't use steroid creams. I can't use antibiotics. I can't use this because it's going to ruin his immune system and
for life. Yeah.
For life. And I have to do this the natural way. So it's impossible for me to talk about everything I did in a short little podcast or video. Like we did so much. It was crazy. And so, he had stopped smiling. That was the point where I was like, enough. He was, I think, maybe 5 months and he wasn't smiling back at me.
Little not smiling.
And I was just like, I can't, because I remember my daughter turned off like a light. And I was like, that's it. I've tried. I've given and I called you. I was like sobbing and you're like, okay, I have 3 kids. Let's talk about this. Like, you can unwind them from this. And I think the conversation that needs to be had is that the way that Western medicine handles children and handles chronic illness is antibiotic, steroid, patch. Suppress. Instead of saying, why is this happening? Right. And what can we do to support the system while we put this fire out? How can we fix this rather than like, let's just suppress, let's just keep on throwing these things at the child. And when it pops up again, we just push it out again. We just keep, and the pushing out becomes all of a sudden an asthma inhaler, becomes ADHD medication,
autoimmune condition,
and it's like, so I think that's a bigger conversation, but that basically you were like, look,
I was basically like, I've had 3 kids and I don't recommend giving antibiotics if you don't have to, but I absolutely have on occasion. And we're talking like, I've got 3 kids, 5, 8, and 13. I don't know, maybe 5 rounds total of antibiotics in the course of that stretch of motherhood that I thought were absolutely essential at the time, because I did everything I had in my toolbox and my children were suffering. And sometimes I believe that their suffering and their perception of the experience is worse than what might happen if they're on a round of antibiotics. So yeah. I basically told you, like, what's the worst thing that happens if you try antibiotics, since you've tried everything, basically.
Everything. Yeah. And I gave them antibiotics that morning. That afternoon, he was smiling. Literally within the span of a few hours, he was smiling for the first time in a month, probably. And then by the end of 2 weeks, we also had to do steroids because everything was just so crazy. But by the end of the 2 weeks, he had gained a ton of weight. Like he was off the growth charts. And by the end of that 2 weeks, we went back to the doctor and he was back on the growth charts. Kept slowly progressing to now he's at like the 95th percentile. He's like a big boy. Funny big boy, talking, doing all the things. Now I have to watch what I say because he was like, are you bleeping kidding me? And I'm like, oh, no. Yeah. So, I mean, he's thriving now and it hasn't turned into a cycle of suppression. We have worked with an integrative pediatrician who sees both. So we have the one here in town that we just can take for well visits and they won't make us comply with the typical well visit thing. If people can read between the lines on that. Cause I do think it is useful in some cases to have that on hand.
Sure.
But we also have Dr. Temple, who's in Charlotte, who sees both, and I'll call her and I'll say, I think he's getting an ear infection. What can I do? And she'll give me some different things we can do with garlic drops.
Garlic oil. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We may do a little nasal spray to try to get him opened up. She does things like that. And she's helped us to basically get his skin cleared up. And now he's tolerating foods. Had a piece of birthday cake at at my niece's birthday party and was fine. It had dairy, eggs, gluten. Like, I don't feed him junk, but we went to the allergist and the allergist is like, here's an EpiPen. Here's how to use it. You're going to need this. You're going to need to put steroid cream on him every day. You're going to have to keep this EpiPen nearby. And, oh, by the way, I think you need to do Dupixent, I don't know if you've heard of Dupixent before.
I've only heard the name before, but I'm not sure. Is that an immunosuppressive agent?
It's an immunosuppressant shot that I think you give the child every 6 months. And they give it to children who have really severe eczema, because this is a really bad problem for a lot of people now. I mean, it's a really emerging epidemic. And so, yeah, he was like, here's just do the Dupixent. We can get your insurance to approve it. And I was like, well, Dr. Temple wants us to try LDA. What do you think about that? Which is a low dose allergen therapy. And he was like, no, that's garbage. Like, doesn't work. Don't waste your time on that. Well,
fast forward.
We're 18 months into LDA, and he used to touch a toy that had been touched by another child that had eaten pistachio nuts, and his skin would literally be bleeding the next day. That's the kind of reaction he would have from foods. He grabbed my husband's coffee that had a bunch of milk in it and spilled it on his chest one day. And he had boils all over his chest from the milk just touching his chest. Like, that's how sensitive he was to everything. And yeah, now he can have a little bit of raw milk, had this cake with everything in it. He had a little peanut butter bar the other day. I haven't done the cashews and the pistachios and those nuts yet, but everything else that he was just like highly reactive to, fine. So
Amazing.
Yeah. And so, we haven't do any more of that stuff.
Well, and I think what I'm hearing from this story is like, it's not all or nothing one way or the other.
Yes.
Right. Like, and that's true if you're talking about working to support your children or support yourself. Yeah. Right. It's too divisive. Everything in this world is meant to be divisive. It's too divisive.
It is.
And instead we can say, well, there is some usefulness to Western medicine and there's some usefulness to alternative therapies. And how can I, as an individual or for my children, to get the best of both worlds if that's needed in this situation.
Right.
I mean, I think you absolutely found that because he responded so quickly to needing that round of antibiotics. And again, like you said, you tried everything you could, everything you could. Like I remember being like, well, have you tried this? Yes. Have you tried this? Yes. Have you tried that? I literally asked probably like 20 different things. I'm like, okay. So you really have tried everything.
And I was down to like beef, lamb, frozen cherries.
For what you could eat, right? Because you were breastfeeding it, right?
Yeah. I couldn't even have coconut oil. I couldn't have avocado. I couldn't have like butter. I couldn't have ghee. I mean, I was just like, I literally can't eat anything or he'll just break out everywhere. It was that crazy bad.
I remember. And so, I mean, it just goes to show you that even if you choose, this is a problem, right? Because there's going to be people
you think you're protected. I thought, like, this is the thing. I'm not doing any shots, and I see this a lot, and it really gets to me. Not to saying they should do that, right? Like, and none of this is medical advice on the podcast.
Use your own informed consent on all this.
Please do your own research. Decide what makes the most sense for you. But I see a lot of holistic parents, my kid's not getting the schedule and they're going to be like superhuman, right? They're never going to have any issues. There's more to the story, I think, than just the black and white. Yeah, no, I'm not doing that because I already got burned by that. Yeah. But how does this happen? And the other reason I came out with this is because I've had people, when I've talked about this in little doses on the podcast, come to my email inbox, no shots for their kid, no processed foods,
organic foods, and
all the things, same situation. And they're where I was as a mom, distraught, not sleeping, feeling really guilty, feeling really confused. And I'm like, I got to talk about this at some point. And I know, like I said on the little mini episode I did, people are going to judge it. And they're going to be like, oh, you just didn't do any German new medicine and there was a conflict. And I'm like, quit gaslighting me. Shut up.
I know.
I talk with the German new medicine people, y'all. I did Tom Cowan's new biology curriculum.
We took his course. Yeah.
I did my due diligence here, and what I think happened, and I don't know what's going on with these other children. I just want their moms to stop beating themselves up, and maybe take a middle of the road approach to put out the fire, but then let's heal the gut, and how can we help make the child more resilient so it doesn't happen again? Which is what
you still do all the circadian stuff, the sunlight stuff, the earthing, the grounding. Everything. I mean, you still do all of that. That's very important stuff, right? It's just that little body of his didn't have the redox yet to be able to handle that amount of inflammation.
Right. And I mean, just knowing what I know and talking with Irene, because I was talking with Irene during all of this, of course, because I've been friends with her since 2020. And she was the one who's like, it's nervous system.
Totally could have been. And how do you in an environment where there was so many opportunities for nervous system dysregulation, daily, right? We don't have to talk about what was happening in your life.
Wall,
it was intense. That was
crazy shit,
to say the least. That was intense, just from my observation, right? Yeah. How do you take a 5-month-old and start to regulate their nervous system when that's still going on, right? So sure, perhaps there was some nervous system dysregulation. I would agree 100% with that, but does that baby need to suffer until he can do somatic work? Not that Irene would ever say that, right? I'm not saying that she would, but
no, she wouldn't. She was on my side with all of this. Just and her and I had a conversation a couple weeks ago of just sometimes we have to utilize these things because it can save a life.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
It's I think Western medicine is for let's save somebody. They're bad off. Let's stop them from dying. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
The holistic stuff, there may be the right bullet thing out there.
Sure.
It's harder to find because a lot of that information's been suppressed, and it's a lot of trial and error, finding the right thing that resonates with that particular body.
Yep.
Which is what homeopathy really is. And I'm not saying I don't believe in homeopathy because I love it.
Love it.
I use it on myself for anxiety, for my own issues. I've used it on him with a cough, with a
100%. I was going to say fever, cough. It's not a non-suppressive.
I haven't had to give him Tylenol for teething, any of that stuff. So I believe in it, but we were not able to find the resonant remedy for his skin at that time. To the level that it had gotten to at that point. We were not finding it, and it wasn't for lack of trying.
No, it wasn't. And I think what you needed was another crunchy mom being like, you can give him, it's almost like a permission, right? To be like, it's okay. Right. And that's kind of maybe what we're talking about here for other people listening. It's you're not a bad mom.
And I've had, and just in because I posted this yesterday, I've had some comments of people. Of course you get the ones of oh, you should have tried blah, blah, blah. I'm like,
thank you.
Did you not listen to the part of the video where I asked specifically for no unsolicited advice? Well, it was the first comment that popped up, and I was like, I'm going to block this person. I'm sorry. I can't do this.
No. Out of all people, you have a bajillion tools in your clinician's toolbox.
I talk to so many people, and there's so much I do that you don't hear about, that you don't see. I'm always in the mode of trying to understand for myself, for my clients, for my kids. I'm always seeking, learning. But the comments that were kind and that I appreciated were adults that were like, hey, I'm so glad you posted this because I had this health crisis and I swore I would never use XYZ drugs, but I was literally unable to leave my house. I was in a dire situation and I had to turn to Western medicine to get out of this situation, to just put this fire out. And then, okay, I can do the work to say, why did this happen? For me with my son, I'm like, why is he reacting to everything in the environment? What is happening?
Right.
And the LDA treatments, I think, have been life-changing. We've used some different little herbs that we found because we did as part of working with Dr. Temple, you can do all the crazy vibrant labs testing, the oat testing, the functional testing, no parasites, no mold, nothing obvious that would point to crazy immune system dysregulation in those really expensive, crazy lab tests, which I don't even
recommend.
I only put so much credence in those to begin with, but there was nothing on there except some gut dysbiosis. So we did some different little herbal tinctures because that's what Dr. Temple does. She's like, oh, instead of treating this with an antibiotic, let's try this herbal tincture. And boom, we did the little herbal tincture, skin cleared up even more. He became more resilient, gut became more resilient. And so it's just been like a trial and error that we've been working on for 18 months now of getting him to this place where he can go to a birthday party. And I'm at the birthday party with the EpiPen. Like I've never had to use it, thank God, but I just have it. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to let him have the cake. Has the cake. He's fine.
Yeah.
Cool.
Very cool.
Hey, it's amazing.
Yeah. But who knows if the story would have been a little bit different had he not maybe had that dose or round of antibiotics to be able to just give his body a little bit of relief.
Yeah.
A little bit of relief.
And that's the thing. Like, I think that there's so much shaming in the holistic health community.
People are embarrassed.
That's why I didn't talk about this for 2 years.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely.
I was just like, I'm going to get judged. People aren't going to understand. But I've really found over the number of years that I've been sharing things online that people appreciate it when you do share the imperfection and you do share the story that you're just like, oh, I don't fully understand all of this, but I think this will kind of talk to the right person who needs to hear it,
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And I think people appreciate that.
We want to talk a little bit about why we both use more red light therapy in the winter really quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Come summer, it is so easy for me to pop outside for 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, take the clothes off and just soak up the natural light. Right. And I know you do. I know you do the same. And it's beautiful because we're getting all of those red and near infrared wavelengths from the sun and imparting all those healing benefits from sunlight. But come, November, December in Michigan, there's very little opportunity for me to do that. It's just too cold, and so I'll go outside and get my light signaling through my eyes, but my skin really, that infrared and red that I want to absorb through my skin is just lacking. And so that's why I would highly recommend if you live in an environment like that, you consider using a red light therapy panel in the winter. It can be the biggest game changer.
Yeah. And we both love the Bon Charge Mini. This is super convenient. You can take it with you traveling. You guys don't know when I'm recording the podcast, half the time I have it on my low back or somewhere in my body to mitigate some of this blue light. And for the months of November and December, you can use the code QuantumPod25 for November and December only to get 25% off the panel or anything on the Bon Charge website. Carrie and I are both big fans.
Yeah. And one more thing really quickly with that. It's a great gift too, right? If you want to start getting people involved in this lifestyle and say it's the most convenient way, if there's a mom that who needs to tend to boo-boos and aches and pains for kids or earaches, tummy aches, sore throats, it's a phenomenal gift to give as well because it really can wipe away pain very fast.
I love it. All right, check it out. Link is in the show notes.
What I want to say here is don't give Sarah any more unsolicited advice, please, under this video either. Yeah, anything else? I mean, I know we kind of wanted to incorporate maybe supplements in some capacity as well with this for like cycling.
Yeah. So, the thing with supplements is I think that they can have a little bit of utility. I've got Chris who's working with me in my coaching groups now, and he understands quantum biology. He understands circadian biology and redox and all that, but he is a kid. Maybe I should bring him on my podcast. And he took the MCAT, was going to go to medical school, and basically was like, this is nonsense. I don't want to do this, very, very smart guy. And he will do supplement protocols for people. But he had the eczema where he was wrapping himself. He had autoimmune conditions where he's sleeping 20 hours a day. So he had to learn this stuff. And he's the one who's kind of like gotten me to try some different things. Like he's the one who had me to try the black cohosh and things like that. And it's a conversation about we need to cycle on some of these things because I don't think supplements are meant to be taken for life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And even with my son, it's like, okay, we cycled him on a little bit of zinc, but you don't want to keep a kid on zinc, especially if they're eating a good amount of red meat already. Mm-hmm. You don't want to do that, No,
100%. I tell my community is like, well, do you ever take this? Yes, I have. I take that. Well, how many times a day or how many times a week? It's like, I maybe took it for 3 days a couple months ago. And
exactly.
So supplements I think are situational in a certain, the only things that I take consistently that could be termed a supplement are high quality minerals and molecular hydrogen.
Yep. Yeah. Same.
And just period, end of story. Those ones, the body, we're a bunch of water, and beyond water, we're a bunch of minerals. So I think our soil is mineral depleted. I think glyphosate, has devastated a lot of the mineral stuff. So I would say that if I'm going to focus on supplementing anything, I'm giving my body minerals.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, let me think of something. N-acetylcysteine. I've taken N-acetylcysteine. Yeah, I absolutely have. Right.
Yeah.
Let's say, for example, in the springtime when everyone in my neighborhood sprays Roundup, right? It's like literally the trucks
everywhere.
Everywhere. I'm like, okay, let me just make sure my endogenous glutathione is just really on board right now. So I'll take it for like 3 to 5 days. And then, so that's situational. For me, methylene blue is situational. I don't take that every single day of my life. And so if someone, and even if you love a supplement, so the vast majority of my clients, I'll say, well, which supplements do you know are super beneficial that are on this list of 20 that you're taking? And it's like crickets. So it's like people don't necessarily feel a difference.
Right.
And so I tell people, I always want to cycle off of it. And even if it's something that I know is beneficial to me, I'm going to cycle off of it for at least 3 days a month, at least a minimum. Yep. If not 5 days on, 2 days off, right? Each week. Because you've got to give your body a break from that stuff that still is synthetic stuff that you got to give your body a break from in order to, give it a chance just to say, okay, let me reframe does my body need any rebalancing? And then sometimes some people will go back on it again and be like, oh, okay, now I'm noticing something different with it. So you give your body just a chance to adapt. The only other way, and I know I'm talking about it I liken this to is if you exercised every single day of your life and never had a moment to recover and adapt, you don't get benefits to that exercise.
Right. Yeah. I think that's when people talk about supplements, and this is a thing I have with a lot of women that come to my community or in my coaching group. I'm like, all right, let's talk about your supplements, what you're taking. And some of them will have this super long list.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, why are you taking that one? How long have you been taking that one? Do you take it every day? Yeah, I've been taking this one for 3 years. I'm like, why? Like, who told you to do that? Because sometimes, like, especially with adaptogens, that's where I see a lot of issues with adaptogens. Now, I've used adaptogens myself.
Same.
But it's the adaptogens, I think you have to be even more careful with, where if you're going to take them regularly, I would do 5 days on, 2 days off, or 4 days on, 3 days off.
Yes.
Because your adrenals, I think, can get dependent on those adaptogens. And then number one, they might stop working entirely, or two, you try to come off of them, your adrenals are going to completely crash.
Yeah. I think that's any supplements, frankly. I think the body has to have a chance to recalibrate itself regularly enough. I don't work with a ton of adaptogens in clinical practice. And if I do, like you said, they're transient. It's like, okay, this is someone who I know needs a little bit of ashwagandha for these next 3 months. So let's see what 3 months of ashwagandha feels like, and then slowly space it out. Like you said, 4 days on, 3 days off for a couple of months. And then maybe maybe it's situational during times of stress or things like that. It's just, I think, the pattern, you hit the nail on the head, is people come with a list that's this long, and it's because it's well-intentioned practitioners that have given them their supplement tools, right? Oh, you're experiencing X, Y, and Z, take X, Y, and Z. And it didn't work enough. And so we go to another practitioner, take X, Y, and Z. And so, and unfortunately, understandably, the patient doesn't feel safe, quote unquote, to get off of those original supplements. So we just add them on. So the modalities, I'm a huge fan of applied kinesiology, right? If you can work with someone who's a really good muscle tester, or if you can learn how to self-muscle test, or I'm not going to talk about it in a ton of detail, but my pendulum testing, right? There's different modalities you can use with yourself or with clients to know which things are your body needs and is in resonance with and would need that support versus what you can pull off of. And through using that, my pendulum modality, I've taken people from being on 35 supplements to 5, and people feel great, you know. And so it's just like, I think the vast majority of people are over supplemented by far. And on the supplements that they are on, maybe there's some beneficial ones, but they're not cycling them. And I think they're also then not getting the full benefit from the supplement as well, because they're not cycling them.
Yeah. And, I've had people on my podcast before that say they take methylene blue and C60 every day. And I even questioned that on the podcast. I'm like, I think you're supposed to take days off from that. No, I feel great. I'm like, okay.
To each their own.
But for me, if I'm going to take methylene blue, it's maybe once every couple of weeks. And it's on an as needed basis. It's
Same with me.
I think I'm getting sick. I had a crappy night of sleep.
Traveling, air travel.
Traveling, something really stressful happened and I just need energy. Then I'll take it and I feel brain fog. I'll take the methylene blue. C60, I give it to my daughter and I cycle her on and off. Like I'll do 5 days on, 2 days off. Or I'll take a couple weeks off every, 2 to 3 months, just because I just don't think you should be on things like that every single day. That's just my
It just makes the most, listen, and if anyone wants to say, show me the research, there's zero research because frankly, there's no research on long-term supplement use. All research is about 6 to 8 weeks, maybe 12 weeks in length. Right. And so for people who are on things for years and years on end, just be aware that your body may need a break. And sometimes when you pull yourself from something, you'll actually realize that your body's asking for it. And again, you and I have different opinions on collagen supplementation. Go back and listen to that episode. Didn't get a lot of views.
I know, it really didn't. I was like, we don't care about this one.
Yeah, we don't care about collagen. But like I have had clients who were supplementing collagen and then just for whatever reason didn't reorder. And then that's when they noticed that their joint pain and what came back and their sleep was disrupted. So, I mean, it's like that. When you pull yourself off of something, you may
notice a difference.
Maybe even more so than when you're on something in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, definitely your body and how it responds is the best indicator. And, I feel like I also have to say this because I've had people in my community before
hear me and think I'm completely anti-supplement. And then they come to do my program and they pull themselves off of all their supplements, to the point where I even had to create a module in my Leptin Reset about this, to say, don't be your own doctor with your supplements.
No.
If you're going to come off of them one at a time, work with someone, do this safely. Because I had one woman that she was on like 50 things and just cold turkey put herself off, and she crashed hard. I'm like, who told you to do that? Yeah. I did not tell you to do that. But this is shaming thing too. Mm-hmm. And that's another reason why I wanted to talk about this whole nuance that we need to have in the holistic health world of having a conversation about things. Because, and first of all, I want people to know I don't judge you for what you do. Like I'm
absolutely not.
I'm taking care of my kids. I'm trying to figure out my life. You want to do what you got to do. I'm fine with it. Like, cool. No judgment here. Cause I feel like people, for the most part, are doing the best that they can with the information that they have.
100%.
Even if from my viewpoint, it's like, wow, that's where I was maybe 10, 15 years ago. Right. Like I see it that way, as people are really just trying to do the best that they can with the information that they have. And so, yeah, I think people go into holistic health, alternative health, and feel like they have to be this perfect thing, like no supplements, or these supplements only, or, we reject this and you have to fit in this box.
Non-tox everything, right?
Oh,
Which sure, if you want to do, that's fine.
It's one thing at a time.
So back in the day, I was like, okay, let me order. So I was using I know these companies can be greenwashed, right? So I was using like 7th generation, zero dyes, zero fragrance for laundry detergent.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh, this works fine. But then I heard, right, oh, this is a greenwash company. And so I went to buying like these really well-made like little pods, but I was probably spending 4 times as much, and then having to order them. I forget to order them. And it's like, oh yeah. I'm like, okay. And I don't have time for that in my life right now. It's just not working for me. So I went back to the 7th generation, and I'm okay with it.
I got to give you the Truly Free that I've been using. I love it.
Cool.
And they're having like a 300 loads, like 70% off sale right now.
Send me a link.
Yeah. I freaking love this stuff, because we were doing that with Branch Basics, because with my daughter, I had to go low tox laundry, low tox everything years ago. And so we were just doing the Branch Basics, and it's just so much more expensive and so inconvenient. So Truly Free, they've got like refills, and you dilute it with water. And yeah, it's so much easier. You just buy it in bulk and just keep it.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, I've been loving that. And, I've talked about that on the eczema video. And people are like, oh, I make my own detergent and da-da-da.
God bless you people.
Good for you.
God bless you people. I know.
That's not going to fit into my life. I'm happy for you. Go for it.
There's people who are, there's this amazing woman in my community. She makes her own deodorant. I actually want her to mass produce her deodorant because it sounds amazing. I want to try it. But it's like, it's just not where my brain space is at right now. And so that's why we need people like that. But it's just, I need a easier alternative at this point in time.
People need an easy button. And this is where I'm coming to with, I know this conversation is just going everywhere, but when, one of my group coaching members, it's a stressful life. Like on our consult call, I actually start crying because she's like telling me about her life. That takes a lot for me to be like, I'm like unprofessional. I'm crying. We're both crying. I'm like, okay, we're going to find prepackaged meals. I don't care. I don't care. This has to be easy for you. And we've got to start getting things going for you. And so that's not ideal. That's not ideal. You got plastic. Right. We, find good ingredients, find ones without seed oils and that stuff. But I don't care.
I know. Right.
Your life is a complete bleep show with all the stress. You're needing to lose weight for health reasons. We have to do this. So I'm gonna make it easy for you. And this is not a permanent solution. This is just like, let's get the scale moving. Let's build some momentum.
This is antibiotic use with your son, right? It's the same thing. It's like, let's take a big load off to start with as we start to incorporate the things that we know are beneficial.
Right. And we're doing light protocols, hydration protocols, like we're doing all these other protocols, red light therapy protocol. I mean, I'm adding in all my other tools, but right now I don't care. We have to get the food. It's just, we got to do this easy button here for now, for now.
Sure.
Because again, and Chris intervened on this and he's like, yeah, the biggest issue with this is the omega-6s. So what we're going to do is make sure we balance with seafood, and or we do some sort of like cod liver oil. I put her on the green pastures, fermented butter, cod liver oil to help to balance out the 6-3. Cool. You know, so that because I have him kind of consulting in on all of our meetings and saying, this would be helpful in this situation. And he's the one I'm kind of letting do consults with all of my clients and look at their labs and say, hey, maybe we need to throw these little supplements in here and tell them how to cycle them on to help get them to the place, because they try to start losing weight and their adrenals crash. You know, how do we get them over that hump to where their body is like, I need to lose the weight. Like I have about 70 extra pounds to lose, but my body is hoarding it right now and trying to lose it. My adrenals crash out every time. So how do we get them over that hump to start getting the wheel moving, you know, and then the adrenals settle down a bit and allow.
Right. So that is where adrenal adaptogens or magnesium or vitamin C, even like those herbs can be beneficial so this is the thing too. And I don't, you probably are going to totally get what I'm saying, but like when you reach a space in quantum biology, you hear this message of, oh, all supplements are shit.
Yes.
And like, you don't ever take supplements. All supplements are shit. And it's like, well,
everything's loaded with deuterium. Well,
okay. Perhaps supplements can be highly loaded, certain ones. I mean, but I still believe that, like you said, what my foundation is, I want to do the light. I want to do the hydration. I want to do the minerals. I want to get outside in earth and nature. And I want to make sure someone's breathing well and sleeping well. Like, but if they still, and that should narrow symptoms up to this point here.
A lot. Yeah.
But if that still exists, then I'm going to say, what supplements might this person be needing? What might their body be asking for? Now that we've sorted through all this, right? What might someone still be asking for? And that's where I can say, let's try Urolithin A. Let's try, you know, I mean, there's things where you can then play around with at that point. I think that's a way to do smart supplementation. But I do feel like there's even shaming in this quantum biology aspect of things. For people to be like, oh, don't ever touch supplements ever. And it's like, wait.
Yeah, that's why I was like with James and putting him on things and my daughter and putting her on things. I felt, I'm failing. I had to do this medication, had to do these few little supplements that we're just, and I feel bad about it. And that's where I'm like, this is clown world. Where can somebody feel okay, you know, and not feel like they're being judged for having to do things for a short amount of times to feel better, you know, while they continue to support the foundation. And that's, I think, the overarching message is we have to do the groundwork. You can't just out supplement, you know, you can't just Western medicine. It's like putting lipstick on a pig, essentially, if you just like throw a ton of supplements at somebody and you don't do the groundwork with nutrition and with light, with grounding, red light therapy, you know, all the things that we talk about. Yeah, it's not going to work. But sometimes these things can actually really help people quite a bit, you know, they really can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I hope this gives people some permission to realize that nothing that they're doing is wrong per se. Just like if you're interested in trying a supplement that you think is really going to be beneficial or you really resonate with, give it a try. If you need, if someone, you or someone in your life might need a bout of Western intervention, and it can be life-saving,
Yeah.
you know? And so it's not about one approach. It's not divisive, right? People, there's room for everyone and there's room. And so just take from our stories, and especially thank you for being so open about your son's story, because I think that that's going to provide people with a lot of just, I think, confidence in their ability to choose what their given situation needs without judgment. So
yeah, I hope so. I hope it, I just saw an email come through that my inbox person forwarded me with a woman just like profusely thanking me for putting it out there because she's suffered with eczema for her whole life, and now she wants to look into LDA therapy. So, it is something that might be helpful, and that would, again, our allergist said it was complete garbage and complete trash, but here, let's do this heavy grade pharmaceutical on a baby and give him this shot to just shut the whole thing down.
Right.
So,
yeah. Case by case basis, you are your own individual. What resonates with you? And sounds like if that LDA resonates with her, that would be an interesting thing for her to explore. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the thing with Dupixent is, if there's anybody that's using that on their kids, I was in Dr. Temple's big program, Dr. Anna Maria Temple, who's our doctor. And now we see her in person. We don't do the big program anymore. We just go up there and see her. And we have we had Zoom meeting right before this one, actually. Mm-hmm. But there are kids, when I would sit on the Zoom meetings, the group Zoom meetings, that were on the Dupixent, and the parents had joined her program because they wanted to get off that train, because they'd get to the end of that 6 months and the kid would just be completely flared up and broken out again. And so that's what Dr. Temple does, is like, she first does diet, then we look at supplements, then we look at the whole picture a bit more. Yeah. So I think there's value in that for people. If you are in that train, I don't think it's too late and then you can't get off of it. I never think anybody is broken or beyond repair in any regards ever. You only are if you say you are. So don't classify yourself, diagnose yourself as beyond repair, beyond hope. I think that there is always hope. There's always support. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And if some of that support does happen to be Western, don't judge it, but just know that there's a lot of foundations you can lay with light and nutrition and all the stuff that we talk about. Nervous system, huge, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next week.